What's up, everyone? DJ Anubis here with the Alternative Podcast, here with my good friend and co-host of this segment, Big Bad Wolf. And we are going to talk King Caesar in our Kaiju Spotlight this time around. And King Caesar, little background, Japanese name for Kingu Shisa, was created by combining the words of king and Shisa, which refers to a creature prevalent in Okinawan mythology. King Caesar's appearance was inspired by Shisa, a mythological beast resembling a combination of a dog and a lion. And so I will ask you, like I ask generally everybody that I do these segments with, when was the first time you seen King Caesar, and how did you feel about the actual creature itself?
So when I first saw King Caesar, it was pretty much the same time when I first discovered Godzilla vs. Gigan, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. Age of 4 or 5, I remember watching that and just whenever they sang the song, when they sang his song, I'm thinking, okay, this is weird, because when you watch all the other films, you're thinking, okay, why are they singing to something that's asleep? Because you're thinking this thing's living. But then once he wakens up, I mean, I felt like he had a better advantage when it came to fighting compared to other kaiju, because he could actually go up and brawl with them, especially you see how he is in Final Wars. Final Wars, like, literally up the ante with his fighting capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I was the same way. I'd seen Godzilla and Mechagodzilla being the first Godzilla film I had seen. And I know Neko and I have talked about it with the song. Like, it's a little bit too long. Like, they go through a second bar.
Oh, I agree. It's like they could have just kept it after the first time, and then it's like, okay, now down to the fire. But it's like, nope, it does it again. It's like, why?
Yeah, it has like that. It like once she does the first verses of it, it like drops down. You think, okay, we're gonna wake up, and all of a sudden, nope, got to go back and sing it again. I'm like,
the writers just went, the writers just did that to troll us. Like, you know what? Let's screw with our audience. It's like they'll never see this prank.
Exactly. So, what is it? Do you think? Speaking of that first incarnation that we saw of King Caesar, or Cesaer, depending on how you want to pronounce it. This is certainly what we got, and it is a very cool creature. I mean, I don't know about the tail so much.
To other kaiju within the media,
right? And it also has almost, in some ways, almost a samurai sort of look about it.
Yeah, different with those armor platings on the legs.
Yeah. So, what do you think for you is like what stands out about him as a character in a kaiju?
Well, one thing I will say is, for the longest time, until I think when I was almost out of high school, I figured for the longest time I never knew King Caesar was actually a golem. Like, I never realized for the longest time he was a golem. I think I had some thoughts, because I'm like, okay, something's a bit off about this thing that's supposed to be a living creature. It wasn't the fact that he could reflect the laser beams that hit him in the eyes back. That part didn't really stand out to me, because I'm like, okay, he probably has some kind of ability himself that allows him to do that. But there's some other parts where I'm like, okay, something's a bit off. It's like we believe he's living, but there were just certain aspects where it's like, okay, there's no way he's actually a living, breathing kaiju. There's something about him to eventually, I think I discovered on the wiki, he's actually a golem. And Toho actually came out with a little book. I think it was before Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla came out, or it was after. Sometime after, they came out with this book that showed his anatomy. And it showed like he had like a furnace inside him for like geothermal energy that he would absorb, and it would go into him. That's what powered him up, because he had different crystallized organs that were powered by geothermal radiation and stuff that helped him function and move. Like, looking inside him was like looking inside of an oil it's like looking inside an engineering refinery, a factory.
Yeah. Yeah, I was interested because obviously you mentioned the eye beams and how if Mechagodzilla would shoot his beams into his. I didn't realize that when Caesar returned it, it was like 10 times the power. That's pretty impressive, actually.
Not only that, but I also found out too from that same anatomy book that apparently it goes through one eye, comes out the other. And it wasn't until I went to watch the final battle clip again, I realized that's actually what's happening. Like, if you go back and actually watch that clip, I think you actually had here in the intro. If also you guys, if we go back and watch it, you actually see it actually goes through one eye, comes out the other, because how it works is it's like a disc that
Yeah.
because it hits at an angle and then it bounces and goes out the other eye. Whereas before you think, oh, it's going out both eyes. No, it goes through one eye and out the other.
Now, I don't remember him using a horn slash in that movie, but I think maybe in Final Wars he did approach that a little bit with that horn slash.
Horn slash, I'm not aware of that.
Uh, well, I should, yeah. So I think this is what it is. So it says it's from Godzilla King of the Monsters Game Boy game. So apparently in the game itself,
Oh,
it
in the
has like,
games.
yeah.
I know in Godzilla Unleashed, they really made him a full-on monk with how he fought. If
Oh,
you
really?
played the Wii version of Godzilla Unleashed, you could unlock King Caesar, and the way they did his moveset and everything, it's like he's a friggin' monk with how he fights.
Yeah, I've always kind of disliked that about the games is that you get these creatures that we love in the kaiju world, and they often give them extra powers that we don't see in the live action films or even in the animations that much.
And they made to where King Caesar can use the same laser eye beams as Mechagodzilla,
Yeah.
except with Mechagodzilla, with the 1974 Mechagodzilla, if the health bar goes down, you won't lose the second health bar. Whereas if it's King Caesar, no way. I may be getting that wrong. It's been a while since I played Godzilla Unleashed, but I think King Caesar, it was, if his laser eye beams went down your health bar, then say you had no more left, then boom, you just lost the next part of your health, and then you go into the third batch. I think it was the
Yeah.
same with Showa Mechagodzilla. No, I think it was him and Mechagodzilla 2, whereas 1974 Mechagodzilla Q, you didn't do that, which was interesting there.
Yeah. I do like this picture that was made up by somebody because I wish I would kind of see Caesar kind of do some more stuff on all fours. I think that'd be kind of cool because then it really would be kind of like a lion in some ways.
Funny thing is, I kind of created my own kaiju myself for my own continuation, and I based him off of King Caesar, which is how I know a lot about his anatomy. Is I looked up that golem anatomy of his that Toho had. I tried to base that into Tezcatlipoca, who would be this golem jaguar statue kaiju, which is based off. The only thing is, King Caesar has actual fur. I like to think, whereas Tezcatlipoca, I have it to where he has crystals and then like stained glass on him, like what you would see at a church, stained glass.
Oh, that'd be kind of cool.
And how what that does is light that reflects from the sky, it bounces right off of the crystal and the stained glass, and it gives him it kind of makes him look like a jaguar when really it's just a reflection from the glass being hit by the light, which I based off of polar bears because that's the reason why a polar bear's fur is actually white. It's because light bounces off of it.
Bottom is his tail. Looks like he's like a poodle.
Yeah, when he's supposed to be half lion, half tiger, also have this big, gigantic, tufted tail at the end.
Yeah, it's like one of my cats when we used to shave her. Has like a little puff at the end.
Oh yeah, the bushiest cat tail I've ever seen would have been the cat before Java, and that was our little tortoiseshell cat Precious. Like
so how did you feel about his story in Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla? How did you like his story arc?
It was definitely very interesting because it was like a prophet. It was like an Okinawan prophecy that that one monster would rise from the mountain, and these two monsters were said that they would stop that monster that rose from the mountain. Yeah. And that's when they realized, oh, we got to protect the Shisa statue because I'm guessing the Shisa statue was one of the keys to awakening King Caesar. It wasn't just the song. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I think the Shisa was that little Caesar says they had to bring to the fame was part of the picture. That I'm guessing without the statue, they couldn't wake up King Caesar with the song.
Yeah, I think the song was more of like a last resort because the Shisu statue was supposed to be the one that literally woke him up. It did open up the cave, but because he was in deep slumber, she had to go do her thing and sing her song to it to wake it up. And But I do like the story and the background of King Caesar. I think it's very cool.
Yeah, he's just an ancient god, and that one comes out just to protect Okinawa. And he's like, okay, back to sleep.
Which is kind of interesting because we've talked about before with Legendary and what they're doing with the MonsterVerse, and we saw Shimu, who is like an ancient Titan on within the Titans themselves. Do you think that if King Caesar was part of the MonsterVerse, that he would be considered like an ancient Titan as well?
I think he'd be in a different classification, especially they go with the golem route. Especially they go by with the fact that he's a golem, especially because Toho made him. Especially they go by that. It could be like he's a construct that was designed by the Iwi people just in case something happened. Like one thing I predicted was that before got any information of Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire, at that point we all believed it was going to be another Kong only film because at the end it shows Kong and Hollow Earth. So like, okay, this one they're going to want to have to expand on Hollow Earth because what's there to expand on the surface world with Godzilla? And my prediction is that there will be these ancient people underground that will see Kong as a threat because who's to say? Because at that point, we didn't know there were going to be any more Kongs in the series. At this point,
Right.
Kong was the last one, so who's to say these people have seen one of Kong's species before? Or who knows how long it's been since a Kong been down and then they've been forgotten from the history. And so they're like, what the heck is this thing? And then they go, quick, we got to wake up King Caesar to fight him. Because they think, oh, he's a threat. We need King Caesar to fight him because this guy could be a threat to the Hollow Earth. Not knowing what Kong's purpose is for being here, then that's when they get into a big fight. And because I predicted it'll be a very fun fight, as one's literally nothing but rocks and bricks. So it'll be like Kong fighting Godzilla over again, except this thing's actually made out of stone and bricks.
Yeah. Do you like the evolution that they had from 74 to Final Wars? Did you like the design of the one from Final Wars?
Oh, I didn't mind the design. I kind of understood what they were going for. It seemed like everything was going for a more futuristic, sleek, and agile approach. Because obviously, this film came out when The Matrix first came out. That's when Matrix was getting big. Because you see so many inspirations from The Matrix in the film, especially how the people were dressed, the action scenes, the slow motion parts. So you can kind of see that even now with this, that everything was inspired by The Matrix, to the point where I think most of the complaints for the film was because they felt like they were just copying The Matrix, but they just put kaiju in it.
Yeah. Why do you think that they haven't done anything more with the character since Final Wars?
I'd say maybe just not enough audience interest to King Caesar. Because it's like when you look at most of the kaiju, if you walk up to someone and say, yo, I like King Caesar, especially if it's a general audience member, they're not going to know who King Caesar is. Whereas if you mention Mothra, Rodan, Ghidorah, and Mechagodzilla, it's like what Rob said. If it's not the big five, they're not going to know who it is because Toho has been shown. D-Man mentioned in a recent video on what could be going on with the new Godzilla -2, as we like to call it now. He mentioned Toho seems to do a pattern of just doing familiar monsters. Because in the Heisei era, they were on board with doing new monsters. But when Godzilla vs. Biollante didn't perform what they wanted to, they went, okay, we're going to throw in Ghidorah. Okay, let's throw in Mechagodzilla. They're like, okay, no, it was like Ghidorah, then Mothra. And it's like, okay, Mechagodzilla's like, you know what, we're doing well. Let's throw in a new monster. And then let's throw in Destroyer. And then they're like, okay, I think we're doing well now. And then they went to the Millennium Man. They're like, let's throw in Orga. Let's throw in Mechagears. Which technically, Mechagears isn't a new monster because she's just a larger version of a Meganula from the Rodan film. Right. But still kind of in a way a new monster. And then after it's like, okay, let's go back to the familiar because obviously no one wants to see new stuff. Which is why Furon and Anguirus was scrapped from GMK. Mm-hmm. But they still kept Baragon for some reason. Like I would have kept Anguirus other than Baragon because Anguirus, I feel Anguirus is more popular than Baragon. I feel like they did it just because they felt bad for Baragon.
Well, I don't know if it's so much that or if they just because I think in some ways the way that the story was written, they wanted some monster that, even though Anguirus generally would fall into that same category because of his history in film, but I think they wanted some monster that was easy to kick around, and Godzilla was like beating the pants off Baragon very easily. And so I think they want at least one monster of those Earth Defenders that Godzilla could easily just like wipe the floor with.
Oh,
Uh,
there was a. If you were a Baragon fan, you were pretty much thinking. It was like when I watched Eddie Hall versus Hathor Bjornsson. I was rooting for Eddie Hall and just watching Eddie perform terribly during that boxing match. I'm like, I'm embarrassed to say I was Team Hall. Like I'm
if they
thinking,
did add him, oh, go ahead.
I was just thinking, dang, I should have voted for Hathor because Hathor actually was fighting and performing like a decent boxer.
If they did add Caesar back into a future film, what would you like to see from the character? What kind of story and what kind of type of armory or weapon?
I wouldn't mind him being built as a construct. I wouldn't be mind if they made him a construct as a failsafe in case, say, Kong or Godzilla were to go rogue. Like he could be built as a failsafe to counteract them. Like I say Kong, it'd be easier because Kong has a glove and an axe, and I'd say he could be built out of things to where that can't cut or punch through. And so it would literally just be a brawl battle between him and Kong if Kong would decide to go, you know what, screw you guys, and then just go and just literally turn heel. Whereas Godzilla, that'd be interesting because I'm not sure if the whole I'm going to reflect the beam from one eye out the other will work on Godzilla, especially with the fact that it's not the same as Mechagodzilla's laser beams. It's like a really gigantic beam of radiation that's going at his eyes, so I doubt that's going to do the same thing. If anything, I could probably burn through the rubies and then probably burn through the disc that's allowing that. Yeah. So it's hard for me to say what they could do, but if I can pull up my file of Tezcatlipoca, I could probably talk about some things that they could do. Let's see if I can.
One thing I do like is somebody did like a concept art of King Caesar, and I think this shit is great looking. Just amazing.
Oh yeah, that's pretty good. That actually looks like a stat. That actually looks like some kind of reanimated statue that would be built.
Right. Yeah.
But
nice detail.
I think I remember seeing that so many years ago. I forget when I think I was still in college when I actually saw that. I was like, oh, man, I'm like, dadgum, that is a design that needs to be in there. Either that or that concept art in the background would be perfect for King Caesar because it displays the fur. Even though he's a golem, he's a construct, it still displays his ferocity.
Mm-hmm.
Because let's say if you were to look at him, you would think you were looking at a gigantic lion. And this helps kind of depict him as this gigantic lion.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you mentioned, the whole like sort of like Earth's last defense. So, if Godzilla did like just kind of like go rogue or just, was not really caring anymore about the humans and the safety of them, technically Caesar could be like, if Kong's not around, Caesar could be the one to kind of step up and come out and do some shit about that.
So here's something. So here's what I have for Tezcatlipoca, and that's thunder and wind manipulation. And so if you mind, I'll try to explain a bit what I have written here for his thunder and wind manipulation. So I wrote that he has small cracks in his body, like within the paws, arms, legs, back, and jaws that could be used to trap in air from movements he makes and from winds. The wind or air captured gets transferred to pockets within each of his limbs. Using geothermal energy that's housed already within him and his crystalline organs to help hold it, he can move them all throughout his body, giving him a fiery, windy aura. This will allow every swipe, strike, slam, and smash to be concussive or perhaps explosive. Can also use air and wind to give himself a boost. The crystals sticking slightly out where no one can see them with the stained glass can absorb electricity and then can also be kept and transferred throughout his body, in which he can tap into at any given time to speed up his movements and attacks, making him shocking as they are concussive and powerful, having having the electricity surge through his teeth and claws allow him to perform this devastatingly powerful yet destructive abilities. Because I think we could probably have something like that incorporated to King Caesar to where he has more cracks that can trap in that stuff too. And who's to say his claws could be made from metal and his ruby eyes too. Say some lightning or some electricity could strike that and he could absorb and be kept in some kind of pocket within himself that then he can tap into at another time whenever he so chooses as a last resort.
Yeah. Even if they put like almost like a third eye type of ruby up here as well, which would be
that too, because especially that horn thing can act like a conductor to electricity, which can go through his entire body and give him like some kind of new power. Kind of like a Frankenstein ability, but in a way it's helping a golem. Mm-hmm. And because we see like Godzilla is vulnerable when he gets attacked by Ghidorah's gravity beams, which are electricity. I like to think Godzilla is vulnerable to it. I don't know. You can agree or disagree with that. But say if he is vulnerable, then that'd be a perfect way to counteract him, is to be able to have some kind of ability to absorb electricity. How is it for Lair then use him when he's like, okay, I'm going to have to bring in the big guns because this guy's just going to blow me to bits if I just keep at it what I am.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like, even though we know they're not going to go the route that we're thinking of with Caesar and anything, but I would love the idea for him to be kind of like an ancient titan. And then in order for him to like Shimo is very powerful. Like Shimo could technically freeze Godzilla, but that's why the whole reason why he was powering up to begin with. He wanted to make sure.
Yeah, and I think even after that evolved phase is done, because Adam Wingard described it as his Kaioken times 10. Times 3 from Dragon Ball Z. So we can see Godzilla going back to normal, but now he's as strong as he was then because Godzilla is evolution in the flesh. And so Godzilla is definitely going to be stronger. It's probably going to come back as strong as his evolution form was, or even stronger than that. So Shimo's breath probably won't work on him after that. Because we saw he could just burst through being frozen.
Yeah, but like, that's the thing. Like, so if King Caesar was yet another ancient titan, then he would have to have some powers that could kind of limit what Godzilla can do. I mean, obviously, Godzilla would find other ways to get around Caesar's defenses and attacks. But I think that if we saw him, I mean, just like, again, this is just such a cool look. Like,
especially if they do something like that, because they'll make him give him like an agile build like Kong. But he's still going to be heavier than Kong because he's made from nothing but bricks and stone. Because if we go back to King Caesar from the Showa era, him and Godzilla were the same height, but King Caesar was 30,000 tons, whereas Godzilla was 20,000. And Mechagodzilla was also 30,000. So King Caesar would be heavier than Kong, but probably almost or maybe even the same weight as Godzilla.
But that kind of make him feel like a tank too. So
yeah, but King Caesar would have the agile build to where he can just jump back and forth and just be striking him.
Yeah,
but I like to think like if he were to make it in, he could be like a ancient construct built by the ancient Iwis as a failsafe in case Kong goes rogue or Godzilla goes rogue and there's no other options. And that's where the thunder wind manipulation can come in. Is they built little pockets that he can house air into from wind blowing in or just him moving and air just flowing through, as well as electricity, which is where that big third eye horn comes in as a way as a conductor to absorb electricity.
Yep.
That way he can use that for later or even whenever he wants to not run out because it's always going to be housed in different parts of him.
Yeah. What if they did bring him back? What kind of story would you like to see? Like, I know you mentioned the Iwis. It's actually kind of a good story, actually, just him being that failsafe. But how would you want to introduce him into that world?
That's a very interesting way to go about it because that's a hard one to go because, again, my idea would be he was a construct built as a failsafe. So we can say maybe perhaps like what happened in Godzilla vs. Kong, even though people probably don't want to see the same thing again. We can say something's happened, like say humans decide, you know what, we're arrogant. Godzilla goes, you know what, screw you guys, I'm destroying all of you. or something else happens that ticks Godzilla off, and he's trying to hunt down something that no one knows where it is except only Godzilla does, because he has that sixth sense to know where something is and where it's located. And the Iwis take it as, oh no, Godzilla is going nuclear, or Godzilla's going nuts. He's out of control. He's done with everything. We need to send him out because Kong won't be enough to stop him.
Yeah.
Because we've seen even the film, even though Kong temporarily knocked Godzilla out, Godzilla still was this close to killing him. Even close, like he was not as close as in the last film when Godzilla literally gave him heart failure.
Yep. All right. Well, ultimately, what do you think is King Caesar's legacy as a kaiju? Like, do you think he'll eventually be forgotten, or do you think because he's still,
Well,
like we're talking about him now, do you think he'll still be remembered?
Well, his biggest legacy is, I think he's the first and only golem kaiju out there. Because there's no other kaiju that we've seen introduced that's a golem. Oh, that's a golem like he is. Because most golems come from Hebrew mythology to where they're just clay constructs, and the only way to kill them is to erase the symbol that's on their forehead. Whereas King Caesar literally takes the idea of being a golem to the next level. Especially, again, if you look up the pictures, and I'm talking to the viewers too, if you look up the pictures that Toho has in his book that shows King Caesar's anatomy, there's so many crystalline organs and how everything flows. There's even lava in there and all of that.
Yeah.
And so I think his legacy is he's the first golem, and I think he's the only kaiju that's a golem. He's just a reanimate Shisa statue. And the fact that he ties into Okinawa, ancient Okinawa, because when I was in martial arts, I took Shorin which was a style invented by the Okinawans. And as a qualification for each rank up with the belt, we had to study a bit on the Okinawan history.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, his biggest legacy would be he is a golem. And I think there aren't any other golems out there that's a kaiju. Like, I think, as far as I know, he's the only golem kaiju out there. So that's his legacy. That's what makes him unique.
Right. Yeah, I agree there. I think he is unique and probably won't be forgotten, but he is one of the ones, unfortunately, because, again, we have these select few of kaiju that, because they don't have very many appearances, they often get swept under the rug a little bit. So it's like, you don't really think of him right away, but because he is in one of the better Godzilla films, he's in two of the ones that make my top 5. So, I mean, there you go, even though he's not really.
Definitely in my top 10. I'm not sure if I think Final Wars and Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla is in my top 5. If not, then one of them is definitely in the top 10. The other one's in the top 5. But yeah. I mean, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla was, as soon as that film came out, they literally brought back the franchise to being dark, because it wasn't grim, but it was definitely a pretty dark and serious tone story with some lighthearted moments, but not too much.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me for this. It's been fun talking about it. So why don't you tell the people like what you got coming up on your channel and what you've been doing?
Well, all I have coming up is I'll be editing some more seamless co-op mod gameplay of Dark Souls Remastered, which for those who have a PC, I would highly recommend you try the seamless co-op mod. It definitely changes the experience for you. Playing with friends is a lot of fun, but warning, there are glitches. But the glitches just enhance the experience because it just makes it 10 times more hilarious. Especially when you find certain bosses and how they glitch out at times. You're just like, what the heck? And you're just laughing. And then, of course, I'm starting to work on a couple of novels. One is Kano Scourge, Dreadworn Age of Behemoths, which that's pretty much what if dinosaurs met Dark Souls. Because I want to do my own dinosaur horror, and I felt biogenetic engineering was too overdone. But the main inspiration is the Connoisseur novel by Henry Adam Knight and the Dark Souls series.
All right. Cool deal. For myself, tomorrow, as I've said earlier today, Mr. Tony the Dead and I will be doing a live stream of the Ghouls of Midnight celebration of getting to the 50 mark of episodes, even though it's not going to be 50 and 51. We're going to do that next week, but this is more just a celebration of getting to that point. It's going to be a live stream. Got some prizes we're going to give out after we do some trivia. So if you're out in the chat, feel free to drop by and participate if you want a shot at some prizes. And then Sunday, we will be doing the Sci-Fi Century, and I will co-host the Event Horizon review. So we got a pretty big panel of guests for that as well. Then Monday, I'm getting together with a Fat Samurai guy from Vintage Cult Cinema to do a review of the movie Soldier with Kurt Russell. And then later in the week, I'm going to do something on Friday where I'm trying a new segment to see how it goes. It's called What If, basically sort of based off the Disney stuff, but not strictly Star Wars or Marvel related. This is going to be regarding anything that I want to talk about in terms of like movies or shows. So first one I'm going to do is What If, regarding the Scream franchise, about, my theory that if they had done a film before the first Scream in 96, I think it was, if they had done like a much darker film to set up everything else. So I have some ideas and speculations and theories that I came up with a certain scene and character in the first Scream movie that I thought would be kind of cool to talk about. And so Mr. Lambert thought maybe this should be a new segment for me. I don't know if I'm going to end up doing it as a segment. It might be if it goes well, but looking for people to want to join me to talk about that a little bit on Friday night. And then finally Saturday, Silver Screen Savant, my pick of Tango and Cash, I'll be doing with Olvin. And then, of course, the following week, Neko and I will be on our way to Maryland for Maryland Death Fest, and we're going to be doing our little review when we get back at some point. But we're going to be just taking a chill and relaxing for a week and listening to great metal, meeting some friends, all that stuff. So outside of that, again, thank you, Big Bad Wolf, for being here and talking this with me. It's always fun.
No problem. I just feel King Caesar's a fairly underrated Godzilla ally.
Definitely. Yep. Great kaiju. And of course, if you people are watching this, please comment how you feel about the character. What would you like to see with King Caesar going forward? Do you think he deserves more films? Or just let us know how you feel about it. And
fun fact, I think it's in the Godzilla versus that Matt Frank does, or it's the Rulers of Earth comics. But there's a little prequel they did through King Caesar has an ancient rivalry with Megalon.
Yeah.
Like him and Megalon are sworn enemies.
That would make sense too.
Because the Okinawans and the Seatopians become like these sworn enemies. And so they have to summon King Caesar to fight off Megalon. And then there's like some kind of prequel lore someone made to where King Caesar actually defended the Okinawans from Amanda.
Oh, wow. That actually would be kind of cool because it's both characters are sort of grounded in like Asian, looks and mythology. So that would be kind of cool. Actually.
Yeah, there was also another theory I watched on the breakdown of King Caesar. Someone mentioned like there was some kind of prequel story that came out. Well, I forgot what was going on, but pretty much this person mentioned like what happened was this dragon was attacking the town. They prayed to the Caesar statue. King Caesar showed up overnight when everyone was asleep and warded off the dragon. And the dragon was theorized to be Manda.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's cool concept there too. I actually didn't think about that, but that'd be kind of cool. But they would have to make like a movie by itself. Like you could put Godzilla in there, but that he would steal all the thunder. You don't want that.
He just steals the show because that's just what Godzilla's purpose isn't to be in the movie for very long. Just for the time he's in there, he's just got to steal the show.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thanks again, sir, for being here. For the rest of you, please like and subscribe to the Meltdown Radio podcast as well as to Big Bad Wolf. Does a lot of gaming stuff, a lot of content up there, so be sure to check it out. And we'll see you next time on the Meltdown Radio podcast.